you join us?
Call this meeting to order. For those in attendance, please rise and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to welcome all of our friends and neighbors and colleagues in joining us in this regularly scheduled May 16th, 2022 City Council meeting. As you come in, what would be to my right and to your left, there's a desk next to the door when you walk in. If you're a guest with us tonight, please sign in. City Clerk, can I please have a roll call?
Councilperson Soha?
Present.
Reiner?
Here.
Beer?
Here.
Morrissey? Sharp?
Here.
Stuchel?
Here.
Pratt?
Here.
Sizer?
Here.
And Mayor Stockford?
Here.
Got 8 present here.
Thank you, Katie. Councilman Morrissey is out of town, so he will not be joining us tonight. We'll move into approval of agenda. Does the city manager or any member of council have any changes to make to the agenda tonight? City Manager Mack.
Mayor, I have 2 items I would like to add to the agenda. The first is under the consent agenda, which is a request for a noise variance from Here's to You, Pub and Grub and Kevin, who's here, for this Saturday, May 21st, for live music. And then the second, so that would be item I under consent agenda if approved. And then the next item is under old business, item A, agreement for use of vacant land. This has to do with the agreement that was part of the buy and sell agreement on the industrial park land. So this is the final agreement, so we can move towards closing. So that would be item A under old business if approved.
Awesome. Do I have a motion to add item I to the consent agenda? Request for noise variance from Here's to You Pub and Grub. And also item A under old business, which would be agreement for use of vacant land.
So moved. Support.
Motion on the floor from Councilman Soha, seconded by Councilman Beer. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Can I have a motion to approve the amended agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Motion on the floor from Councilman Sharp, seconded by Councilman Soha. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. We have an agenda.
That was, I'm sorry, Councilwoman Pratt,
Okay.
second to
I'm the
that.
second.
You were the second?
No.
Oh, I thought I heard Robert and then Cindy.
No, it's Greg and then Deanne.
Oh, I'm sorry, guys.
No, it's okay.
Hard to keep up sometimes. Okay, my bad. You got that, Katie?
Stuchel, Pratt?
Sharp,
Sharp?
Pratt.
Pratt,
Yeah.
okay. Got it.
Thank you, Katie. And thank you, Greg and Cindy. We'll move into public comment on agenda items only. During this time, the podium will be open. Please limit your comments to 5 minutes. Please limit your trips to 1 to the podium. And please understand, during this particular public comment section, you will only be allowed to speak on items that are directly tied to something present on the agenda. Podium's now open.
Penny Swan, Ward 4. I'm speaking on the banning of animals in the cemetery. Since there's
Penny, I'm sorry, we're having a public hearing on that. Do you want to wait until the public hearing to comment on it?
Yep, thank you.
Thank you. Sorry I didn't mention that. Any more public comment on agenda items? Seeing none, we'll close the podium and move into the consent agenda. We've got approval of bills, city BPU claims at April 28th, and our payroll of April 28th. City council minutes of May 2nd, which is our last meeting. Budget workshop minutes of April 28th. Cemetery minutes of May 4th. Maury Street water main street closure request for Pub and Grub. Here's to You Pub and Grub street closure agreement. Michigan South Central Power Agency proposed revisions to bylaws and articles of incorporation, and also noise variance for Here's to You Pub and Grub. Any discussion on any items in the consent agenda? Kevin, do you want to step up real quick and tell us what you're doing over there?
Yeah.
I know we talked about it a little bit, just let council know and the public.
This will be our 12th anniversary, and we're doing more like a welcome summer party. So come May every year, I wanna do a welcome summer, and then in September, a goodbye summer party. And, last year, both of my day were very successful. Really just shut down the street so I can set up, stage comes in, all that stuff. And then we shut down at 11:30, tear down, and get out of there, clean up. That's really pretty much it. Maybe some human sacrifice, but I'm not 100% sure. So, any questions?
Any questions for Kevin?
I think what you're doing for the community is great.
Thank you, sir.
Buying that restaurant, getting that going.
Thank you.
What you've done in there is awesome.
Thank
He's what Hillsdale needs. More people like him. We
Thank you, I
believe in
appreciate
Hillsdale and we appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that a lot.
Really awesome stuff, Kevin.
Thank you.
The foodie walk too. Love that stuff.
Those are beautiful, man.
Yeah,
You know,
they
we're
are.
coming up this Monday, so a week from tonight's another one.
Yeah, I'll be there, for sure.
Nachos.
Nachos.
Oh, my wife better not hear that. Here I go.
Any more discussion on any items in consent agenda? I entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Motion on the floor from Councilman Stuchel, seconded by Councilwoman Pratt. City Clerk, can I have a roll call?
Councilperson Briner,
Yes.
Lear,
Yes.
Sharp,
Yes.
Stuchel,
Yes.
Pratt,
Yes.
Sizer,
Yes.
Mayor Stockford,
Yes.
Councilperson Soha.
Yes.
8-0 approved.
Thank you, Katie. We will move into communications petitions. First item is retirement for Kathy Flogger. Kathy, did you want to say something about this? Kathy's-
Just that, Kathy's retired after 33 years of service to the city. Last Wednesday was her last day. They had a little gathering for her out at the DPS building, and we gave her a certificate of appreciation from the new director, Jason Blake, and myself. So, you know, she will be missed. We do have a new person in place that is learning, and we're excited for the changes. So.
Yeah, that's a big role to fill, Kathy.
Exactly.
Her voice, the voice, Kathy's voice. You will always know it when you call her Kathy's voice. Straight, to the point. That's the way you want it.
Yep.
She will be missed.
For
But
sure.
she earned it, and so will I.
You looking forward to that day yourself, Bruce?
30 days.
Okay. All right, we'll move into item number B. Reading Emergency Unit Executive Director, Mr. Keith O'Neill is here with us tonight. Keith,
Hello, everyone.
thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me. I am the new executive director. I stepped into this role back in September of last year. The executive director of Slipka retired the end of August. I apologize that I haven't been here early. One of my goals is to get out and go to the meetings within the communities that we serve, and just to introduce ourselves and make sure everybody realizes we're still here, because I also work the road as a paramedic, and it's quite shocking to me to find out when people are wondering if RU still works here in the city. It's confusing to me, but I understand there's multiple agencies that come into the area, give or take if we're out of the area, and it can be confusing to people that don't understand the 911 system. I also just wanted to see if there was any questions for me that you may have, anything I can enlighten you, anything I can bring back to the next meeting, if so desired.
Thank you, Mr. O'Neill. Any questions for Mr. O'Neill? No questions, it looks like, but I will thank you for coming tonight. I don't remember the last time we saw the REU director, the previous one, so we appreciate you coming and
It was during
introducing
the
yourself.
millage.
It was during the millage?
Yeah, when they wanted the millage.
So come back more often than when you just want one. How's that sound?
I did hear that, and I apologize about that, but I believe we need to be out in the community more so before you ask for money. But my door is open, if you wanna stop by, I have cards if you wanted them, but really, it's pretty easy to reach me. I work the trucks, I work behind the desk, so. All right, thank you for your time.
Thank you for joining us tonight, sir. Okay, and item number C is a Comcast letter. Yep, A letter from Comcast. Any discussion on any of the items and communications petitions? Seeing none, we'll move into adoption of ordinances, public hearing. Item A, public hearing, fiscal year 2022-23 city budget. Dave?
Well, do you want to open the public hearing, or do you want me just to give a?
I want you to give a quick overview, and then we'll open the public hearing.
Very good. Thank you. So the city's fiscal 22-23 year appropriations, as it stands with this budget, are about $11,840,000 and some change, which is up about $282,000. In the BPU, appropriations are at $20,250,000 thereabouts. That's water, electric, and sewer funds combined. Between the two funds, the water, or city and BPU, we are using about $2.7 million in fund balance, primarily from the electric department to work on their system upgrades, but it also includes some out of the general fund and some in water and sewer. The priorities that council has outlined are mentioned within the budget. So in regards to street repair and reconstruction maintenance, we're investing about $2,265,000 in street reconstruction, maintenance, and infrastructure projects. That includes $855,000 for South Howell in Uran Street. So Howell would be part of the Special Assessment District project this year, and Uran was one we received about a $100,000 grant for. And then $610,000 of that project is in local streets, which is for Linwood and Morey. The flooding issue that's down there will be dealt with as part of this project, and the plan is to pay for that portion of the project through our second installment of ARPA funds, or a large portion of it, which is about $418,000. The fix for that flooding is about $450,000, and that will entail actually purchasing a lot there owned by Dr. Herbner, right there in the corner, and we've, as our cheapest method, are going to put in an area for retention for the water to go into that's normally in the street. It will go into the retention area and then seep into the ground as opposed to just sitting in the road. Yes.
Is that the work they were doing up there? Or down
Yes,
there?
so they were testing for the infiltration and coming up with ideas. And that by far is the cheaper of our options. We're hoping it takes care of most of the problem, if not all of it, but we have another option if it's still too much water for that retention area. Also, as part of that flooding issue, we're also looking at the area by the beaches property at Willow and Oak Street. When that was built, at some point in time, it was built over top of one of our storm sewer drains, over top, and the drain is failing. So, as part of this budget, it includes money to reroute that storm sewer pipe around the building to the St. Joe versus going right underneath the building.
You talking the parking lot? That area?
No, this pipe actually goes under the building, so.
The old Hillsdale tool building?
No,
Oh,
we're
not-
on, beaches.
Or American
Beaches.
Copper and Brass?
No. Tony.
It would be
Rod, right?
Rod Beaches?
So his building there where he stores his trucks for the carnivals and those
Okay.
kind of things. It goes under that,
Willow and Oak Street.
yes,
Okay.
Willow and Oak.
It used to be Daisy One, was used to be in that area
Yeah.
too, now it's American Copper and Brass.
Right, but it
Yeah.
goes around them, but it goes right under a side portion of that building that the his property somehow. It
Okay.
got
That
built that
explains
way.
it, yeah.
So that would also be part of the infrastructure to address that. The second item is, we do have 30,000, budgeted for the audio video system in here. We're waiting on a second, bid from Clayford, that's retiring up in Jackson. And we should be getting that here in the next week or two, so we can actually move on that project. Those are really the two big items as far as spending goes. Revenues increased by a little less than 5%, about 4.5%. And then this coming budget year, with approximately 35% of that coming from property tax. That's typically how much we see of our total general fund budget that comes from property tax, about 35%. Pilot makes up about 22%. State revenue sharing is about 20%, and then 23% is kind of miscellaneous revenue sources that we see. So that kind of makes up our general fund revenue structure. Expenditures for the year are up a little less than 4%, so 3.8%. As we talked about in combining my position with the VPU director, that position, the combination is saving the general fund about $75,000 a year. So that is working according to original discussions. And then on the VPU side, usage is up a little bit. Both are pretty on all the departments. The electric department is on track to be up about 2%. With revenues projected to be up a little over 800,000 from the 2022 budget. It does include a 1% rate increase as they tackle some of our continuing capital improvement projects, which are pretty pricey in today's market. But they have with their projects this year, which is using about $2 million in fund balance, they still have a fund balance of about $5.6 million to continue their capital project plan. Water department revenues are up about $162,000 in the budget from 2021 to 2022. The projected rate increase is individually is 5% on that, and we're looking at, as part of the Westwood project and other capital projects, our financial advisor is recommending that we issue about $2 million in bonds this fall for the water department, so that we have money to address those capital projects that have been delayed for years, so we can get our system in shape. The same thing is true with the sewer department. The budget is up about $210,000. That includes a 10% rate increase. But when you hear those numbers, I would caution you not to kind of freak out, because that's an individual amount. But if you look at your utility bill, in combination, it's 3.9% is what it is, which is well under inflation at this point. And for the average house, Bruce, is like $6 a month. So
Let's flush it.
well, it's up to you. But so the increase in combining the three is 3.9% again, and for the average household is about $6.10 a month. We try to keep it as palatable as possible. That's why you see like the 1% on the electric rate. We were able to hold that pretty close. The other two, with the bonds and water and sewer, we have to address address capital needs. In fact, as part of the BPU plan, if you recall, we did submit a CDBG grant application for $2 million, which included replacing 75 water shutoffs, which were all shot. So when we have a water main break, if you go to one and it won't work, you gotta keep going back to shut the water off to work on it. And they've identified at least 75 that need to be completely replaced. And as well, when we cambered all the sewer main in the past year, there are a lot of places that there are actually holes in the main, there are rocks in the main. I mean, they're just, it's things you don't see, but we cambered it all as part of our asset management to see where the worst was. So what this grant takes into account is replacing 75 water shutoffs and over a mile, almost a mile and a half of sewer main, which is in dire need of repair. And that's part of that capital. That's a total project cost of about $2.6 million, and that's part of the reason, for the increases in water and sewer is to replace and repair the infrastructure that's been kind of neglected for a number of years. That being said, we're pretty pleased with the way the budget worked out. I actually thought it would be much tougher this year to accomplish the goals and continue our road and infrastructure work. But I think Karen, Finance Director, and myself are pretty pleased. We're able to maintain full force of public safety. We're able to invest substantially in our infrastructure, $2,265,000. Get our sound system up and going before Bruce retires. And in all, we're very pleased with the budget.
Awesome.
Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Dave. Before we open up the podium, any discussion, any council discussion?
Just the 1% on the electric, that's pretty good considering what consumers' power will probably do this summer. They're usually 3 to 5%, so water and sewer not thrilled about, but it has to happen. It's been ignored for years in the past, and we have to get caught up. So we have to pay a little price. And as far as the water shutoffs go, when Ripon that nightmare was going on, every time they had to shut the water off, they did. They had to keep going and find where to shut it off, and then we had to have boil water orders. And it could have been down, the one had to rip on down by Spring Street, but they had to shut it off, even to shut it off at my house, and that's how frustrating it was for those guys. So I understand, 75, that's not shocking.
We had one sewer main repair just this last week on Westwood, where it actually, a rock was actually pushed down through the pipe, the sewer main. So the sewer main was blocked by about 90%, and the pipe was about 12 feet deep, of course. So we had to, repair that. And it's just one example of pieces of pipe, and then that's what happened on 99 when we did, the work there and did that lining project. Is it was in such bad shape that part of the pipe was missing. And that's where they lost the camera and had to cut into the road because there was a hole and the camera fell in it. And these cameras were tens of thousands of dollars and got stuck. So we're trying to start addressing these things before they get way out of it. Continue to get way out of it.
Thank you, Bruce. Thank you, Dave. Any more discussion? Councilman Soha?
Is this where we talk about budget, or is that after public comment?
No, we can talk about it right now, and then if anybody has anything to add after public comment,
I
that's
just,
started.
I just noticed on page 2, when we get in the numbers, that we budgeted $17,000 for legal services, and it said activity through February 28th is $35,995, and I was wondering why we're over twice our budget on our legal fees.
Sure.
Tommy's here.
Well, and he can jump in and add to it, I'm sure. So a lot of that, probably most of it, has to do with the lawsuits that the city is finding itself in. The the local ones that mostly Tom takes care of for us. In fact, the finance committee brought it up earlier tonight, as the invoice was 4,400, somewhere, I believe, in that ballpark. So a little over 4,000, and 3,000 of that was one lawsuit with the Hillsdale Justice Project that went to court. And Tom has to prepare properly. We have witnesses, we have to do depositions and those things. And we've found ourselves in a number of them. And we might win, and we've won all of them to my knowledge, but they still cost us thousands of dollars to defend and prepare for. So that is why that number is so high. Some minor things that would probably be in there is, this land sale work or things like that, that Tom has to review for the city. But big lion's share of it is these lawsuits, these small lawsuits.
So lawsuits have doubled our legal budget, more than doubled our legal budget this year.
Did I hear you correctly that it's 40-something thousand now, not 35?
When I checked earlier today, I think that it will probably hit about 47,000 for the year, so we'll probably be over $30,000 over that budget. Now we won't, when we have the amendment in here, and I spoke to the finance director about this earlier today, we'll only amend that if that total section of the budget would go over its budgeted amount. So that administrative section, if it goes over its total budget, then we'll do a budget amendment to increase that.
So we've won all those lawsuits, all the lawsuits that have been filed against us this year.
Everyone.
Is it inappropriate to, when we get sued and we win lawsuits, since we're working with taxpayer dollars, is it inappropriate to countersue for legal fees?
Well, you can't countersue for legal fees. What you can do is you can ask the court to award legal fees, which we do as a matter of course. The rules in the United States are different than they are in England, where our justice system derives from primarily. In that in England, the loser pays the winner's attorney's fees. In good old US of A, we have the American rule, which is everybody pays their own attorney's fees, unless there's either a statute that says you can recover them, like in a discrimination case or something like that, or if it's deemed by the court to be a frivolous claim of defense that the party has asserted. And unfortunately, with some of the suits, like there was one in particular where the claims were absolutely patently frivolous, but we had it in front of a visiting judge because they had sued the county as well. And it's a visiting judge out of Jackson that I know from prior experience several times over will not, under any circumstances, regardless of how frivolous the claim is that's been asserted, award you costs and fees. That was the one where we, depending on the judge it would have been in front of, we had a shot at it, but not in front of that judge. So we asked for them. At some point, if you appear in front of the same judge enough times, and the same parties or their attorney continue to assert claims that are basically frivolous, the courts will start entertaining some attorney fee award claims. So we might be reaching that point now. Unfortunately, part of the problem has been that many of the suits, because they would join the city and the county, and because the local judges, our district court and circuit court and probate court judges are all county employees, they can't hear those cases. So we've had them heard by an array of judges from other counties, so we haven't had that stacking up of what are clearly frivolous claims for people. But more and more of them are asserted just as against the city. I think we're down to one now. And so we might be reaching that point where the courts start to maybe consider giving us some points. One of the things we've also tried to do is with some of the, which is not something we've done in the past, but with some of the actions that we've had, because some of these matters have been, strangely enough, code enforcement issues, which we typically just resolve they give us an opportunity to talk to the person who's issued the citation, we talk to them about, how they'd like to resolve it. Typically, that's it, we enter into an agreement, and most of the time, those people eventually will bring the property into compliance. It doesn't cost us a lot of money to do that. We've had some of those that have gone to full-blown hearings that are functional equivalent of a trial, where we spend half a day calling witnesses to prove that they're in violation of city ordinance. And in those, we are asking the court to award, because the municipal civil infraction statute allows the court to award costs up to $500. Unfortunately, there's a limit on it. So in some of those, we've been able to get some costs, and the court has been open to that. So on a lot of those where we actually have to go to a hearing, or even in some instances where we don't have to have the hearing, but we do work out a resolution with people, we ask them to pay something toward the fact that the city's had to get prepared to proceed from here. So we recoup at least some of those funds that way, but nothing near what you're having to spend on these other lawsuits. Hopefully those will be done, but.
Councilman Zoha.
Thank you for that. So these fees are just legal fees for your, not including, you said in the hearings that you would have to bring witnesses? And
No,
I'm,
that
or,
would include everything. So we just send them the bill. We do designate out code enforcement things within the bill so that if that's a separate budget item for the code enforcement office, they have a way to track how much is getting
right,
spent on
that, I appreciate that. I was just thinking from the city's perspective, the city's having to defend, but these aren't covering the city's costs for its employees, correct? This is just legal
No,
fees.
that's just what.
So whenever we have to go and defend ourselves, and you said bring witnesses, so I'm assuming the city's being sued, the city employees are witnesses, is that a correct?
Yeah, and the only ones we've had that have actually gone, like, the equivalent of a trial, have been code enforcement matters. And typically, people from the code enforcement office are, at least one of them would be there at the hearing to start with, because they help discuss what would be the resolution that we hopefully work out what we have to have here. So there have only been a couple of them where we've had very much time from other personnel, within the city. I think only 2 of them where we've had to do that. And that's, those bills are at our reduced rate for the city, which is $150 an hour, which is significantly less than, say, you walked into my office and had a regular civil claim and I was defending you in it. It would be significantly more per hour. So, yeah, those add up fairly quickly.
And just to add to that, like in one of the particular cases, we had myself there during the court hearing, we had two people in code enforcement, one from the police department, two from the fire department, all in one hearing for a couple hours. You know, you start adding up if you're asking about opportunity
Right,
time.
that's what I was trying to get at.
You know, that's the
Yeah.
cost that we don't capture.
Right.
You know, you can see the legal fees, but the time that it takes us to prepare and go to the hearings.
hired to do, yeah.
And also on a couple of them, we've been able to set off, I can't remember if it's 1 or 2 of them that we've had, because I also represent the county on its civil matters. In at least 1, maybe 2 of the cases that we've had where the county was also sued, the county didn't have separate insurance coverage for it, because they wanted to turn it over to the insurance carrier for it. So I was able to represent both the city and the county, and we did put the claims for the same against the 2 entities, basically. And we just divided the cost between the city. So that saved the city and the county probably.
Well, that's significant. And so now, because of that, we're doubling our budget for this next fiscal year for the legal fees. All right, I just needed to clear in my head. And like city manager asked Tom, there's no countersuing is not an option.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
not a suit, you don't have a cause of action against someone for attorney's fees. What you do have is you can ask on the basis that they've asserted a frivolous claim or defense to have court award attorney fees. And in some instances, there's
Thank you.
Well, I think, that I can speak for all the council when I say, if we have a chance to get taxpayer money back for lost resources, we should probably do whatever we can, Tom, and I don't think I have to tell you that, because I know you're very professional, but if we can get money back on frivolous suits, then it's something that I think council would like to see happen.
We do our best. As I said, we ask for them every time.
Okay.
At some
That's-
point, maybe we'll start getting them.
That's good enough. They ask for them every time. That's good. Any more discussion about the budget? I would just say that these, I really feel like these American Rescue Act dollars that are in our budget is blood money. Do not like it at all. I feel like everybody's being bought off. I feel like every single American has taken blood money in the form of stimulus checks and American Rescue Act money and.
But we cashed the check. We used
It's
it.
a very unfortunate situation. Any more discussion, Councilman Soha?
As I remember it, Mr. Mayor, that American Rescue Act money was allocated by the federal government to be spent, and it was gonna be spent, and if we didn't receive it, it would've gone to our neighbors. And, you know, unfortunately, yeah, it stinks, but that's beyond our reach, and when all this funny money goes out there, costs go through the roof for everything, and supply chains get disrupted. I'm getting this in the private sector as well, and,
Oh, me too. Me
you
too.
know, so I don't like it, but as a matter of budgetary wise, it's something that is necessary, unfortunately. When the money's out there, and it's available to us, and it will just go to our neighbors if we don't take it, I don't see any other choice, unfortunately.
Any more discussion? All right, we will open the public hearing. Well, the public hearing's already open, but we will open the podium for public comment. Please limit your comments to 5 minutes. Please limit your trips to 1 to the podium. And please ensure, if you're commenting during this portion of public comment, that you are speaking about the budget. Podium is now open.
Hello, I am Carla Adams, I'm Ward 4. So this is in regards to the current budget, correct?
This is
Only not
regards
the
to
pet
the
cemetery?
budget, the current budget, yes, 2022-23 fiscal budget.
Okay, so let me just read you. I know that you say that this money was gonna be handed out anyway, but it came with contingencies, this one specifically. And it says that if any of the county or city fails to comply with federal law and regulated guidelines, all of the art money would be required to be paid back to the federal treasury, as in the case with all federal funding that the county, city receives. So, my question is, when this county, city shut down, did they send any legal documents with you regarding COVID? Cause I seen HHS sent me one that said COVID hadn't been isolated. So, it was a requirement to shut everything down based upon what they said when they were lacking proof. I'm disgusted at the city and the desire to take this money and put it on our grandchildren and our children when we know darn well the federal government does not have this much money to be handing out. Not only handing out, signing off on somebody else's life. So you're all responsible for that. Whether or not you signed it, you accepted the money knowing it wasn't yours, and it was coming with these contingencies. So you can say whatever you want, you can look yourself in the mirror, and you can look at your grandkids later and explain to them why or why not this country didn't sustain itself. Let's see, is this the same grant money that's being used for the airport that we so need, and the sewer projects that we so need? Because the last time I seen, we needed a country. I'm gonna leave it at that for the budget. I have other things I would like to talk to you about regarding my FOIA requests, and I'm just so sad to see our little town of Hillsdale jump into a position that they know they can't pay back, knowing there might not be nothing left. Thank you.
Thank you, Carla. Any more public comment? Any more public comment? We will close the podium. I would say I'm sympathetic to what you say, Carla, but I would also say that anybody that cashed a stimulus check did the exact same thing that every city that has taken ARPA money has done. Anybody that cashed a stimulus check, anybody that took extended unemployment when they didn't need it, has done the same thing. And every single grant that this city takes, or any other city takes, has those same federal guidelines and regulations on them, which is why Hillsdale College stopped taking any of that money altogether, which I think is exactly what I would love to see this city do, is stop taking any of it. I wish we had the infrastructure and I know I've had lots of conversations with Councilman Soha about getting to somewhere where we could be in that direction where we wouldn't have to rely on any of this money.
A lot of hurdles.
And a tremendous amount of hurdles, yes. Any more discussion? Councilman Beard.
I just have to say too, though, you can't, the only reason the federal government has the money they have or not is because people pay taxes. And I don't know about the other at this council table, but I know that I paid a lot of taxes last year. And so in some regards, they're just giving back the money we've paid them. And it's usually a lot less than what we paid them. But to Soha's point, they're gonna give it to somebody. And I don't feel guilty about taking it because I pay them a lot of money. And it's, in a way, it's our money.
No, that is a valid point, Councilman Beard, and that's how we always end up justifying taking it. It needs changed at the state and federal level. It's not something we can change here at the council level. We can not take the money, and then we don't get the money. I don't know.
Just to add to that, Mayor, at the city and state levels, we have balanced budget amendments.
That's true.
Where we cannot spend money we do not have. I think that's really needed at the federal level. To make them, to make them make those hard choices. And that's the big disconnect because of their access to unlimited funds.
Right.
It's kind of, when you look back where everyone got in an uproar, this was probably 20 years ago when House members were writing checks that they didn't have the money in the accounts in Washington. And all the, people, they were just basically floating all this money. And so all the outcry on that, but yet we've transcended from 20 years ago now as a body of government, they have no limits on what they can spend.
Well, that's why we're trillions of dollars in debt.
30.1 as of this morning.
That's a federal issue and. it's
We're-
not
You're right,
state
you're right,
issue.
Bruce.
So
You're
let's
right.
just move on.
Motion to,
Did you close public comment?
thank you, Robert. Any more public comment before we close the podium?
I did.
I thought I did close
Yeah,
the
you
podium.
did.
didn't I?
You were working
Okay.
Okay. All right. Well, we need to vote before we close this public hearing and move into the next
Right.
public hearing.
But we're just going to set, we're gonna adopt the budget at the June first meeting, so.
So we're not adopting the budget right now, we're approving the budget resolution. Okay.
Delay action to June sixth meeting, at which
Yes.
time the various resolutions will be presented. So, you don't have really any action here on this particular item.
Okay.
June sixth is when you'll vote on the budget stuff.
Well, for what it's worth, you guys do better on the budget every single year, Dave.
Right.
Really. you
It's
work
every year you sweat wondering how they're gonna be able to make it.
You work in miracles. I've seen it. It's incredible what you guys have done. Okay, we'll close the public hearing and we'll move into the next public hearing. Ordinance amendment to approve cemetery animal ban. Excuse me.
That would be Jason, I think.
Yeah, Jason, you wanna take this?
Good evening, Council, Mayor, City Manager. Several years ago, the current ordinance 2017-01 was adopted for both Oak Grove and Lakeview Cemetery. The ordinance stated that kept animals, pets, confined to the roads that was through both cemeteries, and with that was a leash or under verbal control. Since then, we put in signs also through there at both entrances at both cemeteries with the ordinance that was on there. Since then, to date, we still constantly, to date, the ordinances have been constantly been ignored. Cemetery grounds have been still used for dog run, parks, owners were allowing their pets to run unleashed through the premises. This issue was taken to the cemetery board about 3 months back. Your discussion with the cemetery board, they voted all in favor, if I'm not mistaken, to just ban dogs from the premises of both cemetery grounds. Any questions?
Thank you, Jason.
Thank you.
Any questions for Jason while he's at the podium? Thank you, Jason.
Thanks, sir.
Any discussion at the council table regarding this? Councilman Brenner?
Yes, I will just say, at the beginning of this venture that we've gone down with people allowing the dogs in the park, or in the cemetery, I guess, and doing their business on grave sites, at the beginning of it, I was in favor of banning dogs altogether. Since then, I've talked with some people up in that area that live in northern part of the city limits there, and they actually walk their dogs, and they do follow the rules. And they're not big dogs, they're little dogs, and up there in that area, there's not a lot of places to walk besides down the sidewalk, and the cemetery is kind of a peaceful, place for them to walk their animals. So I'm kind of pulled in both directions. Not quite sure how I would, vote on it, but, I just wanted to put that out there, that there are people, and, we're basically, banning it for all just because of a few bad apples is kind of what I feel like in that situation.
It's true. Have we thought about being more like proactive with it and having more stations for the dog waste and maybe making the bags available? So, because Councilman Brenner is right, a lot of people, I have a lot of faith in the residents of the city, and I have the utmost confidence that 95% of our people that walk their dogs there understand the sanctity of what a cemetery is and would never let their dog do business on somebody's headstone, and also just follow our normal city ordinance, which is pick up your dog's waste and put it in a waste basket. Have we had any thought of that, of adding more stations for? I really do, yeah, please come back, Jason. I really do hate to punish all the residents because of some inconsiderate and irresponsible people.
Sure. So right now there is no of the Kirby bags there for dog waste. Stocks Park does have the Kirby system,
Yes.
and is way underutilized at that park as well. Obviously, I've taken over on some of this before, it predates me a little bit, but from what I know, and from our cemetery sections here tonight also, is there is people that do respect it for sure, in this way it's supposed to be done, but it's generally in large done, of the animals running through the park grounds, cemetery grounds, and, doing their business within the stones where families will be walking and so forth. So I don't know if we find that medium in between how to, educate through there, maybe get some Kirby bags or something as a possibility as well. But that's kind of where I'm at.
How about just a $500 fine for anybody that lets their dog take a crap on a headstone? Because
Yeah, what,
that might deter it. Not saying we'd catch everybody,
Sure.
but.
Gotta put cameras up.
No, I
gotta
know, I
enforce
get it,
the-
I get it.
well, I mean, I guess that was going to be my question, is what are we doing presently for enforcement? Because I'm not reflexively against this new ordinance, it's just that, you know, we have an existing ordinance that you can't let your dog do their business like that. So what's the present enforcement structure?
The present enforcement structure, Scott, can you help me on that one by chance?
Well, Jason, it is posted clearly at the entrances.
Correct. It's on, as soon as you walk in Oak Grove, it's on, I think, an 18 by 24 inch sign. And at Lakeview, it's on multiple drives at Lakeview Cemetery as well, because there's the 5 that
Yeah.
go across Bernard Street.
We basically enforce them on a complaint basis. And when we get the complaint, if we have an available officer, they go up there. A lot of times the person's already gone because the complainant usually confronted the person. So that person would collect their animal and leave. Sometimes we get a vehicle description and a registration, and we make contact with that person. We, to my knowledge, have not issued any citations, nor do we have a repeat offender after we make contact with somebody. But there are the same small group of people, if you will, that frequent the cemeteries more than others. So they register more complaints than other people because they don't want any dogs in there. And sometimes we don't find the people by the time we get up there, and sometimes we get yelled at because we weren't there to deal with this.
So, but if I may, Chief, and I'm sorry to cut you off. So, I mean, there's, I don't wanna say that there's an issue of enforcement, because obviously there are things that are of greater priority, but it's not as if we have the resources, to do ironclad enforcement even of the existing ordinance, let alone to then add on a new one that's even more rigorous. So what would, other than the fact that we're saying this is the ordinance now, what would effectively change? I mean, somebody could still come in with their
all
dog.
honesty, from our perspective, with our staffing right now, it would be complaint-based. With them knowing that occasionally we do drive through the cemeteries, and if they saw the violation, they would take action on it. But like with everything else, with parking enforcement, we try to do the education and take care of that way, and if it's obvious the education component does not work, then we would take action with a citation.
Can't we just make Larry Walworth the poop?
Oh, God, don't do that.
No.
It's just
Bad
like,
idea there.
if I may, it's like Bill, he walks his dog all the time. He's very respectful. He has this little poopy bag with him. I have people the same way. If I catch somebody coming by and their dog goes in my yard, I'm gonna find where they live. Trust me, I've got a big dog.
Throw it over the yard.
I've got a big dog, and I would pay them a visit with the bags. But it's be respectful of your neighbors and other people. You walk your dog, be respectful. That's all it is. It's the same way in the cemetery. That's the place you want, it's it's basically holy ground you're going in there. Be respectful. Don't take, if you wanna take your dog in there, keep him on a leash, but don't let him do the number on it. There's just a few people ruining it for everybody. We've gotta catch those people and just educate them.
Well, and I saw the list of exceptions, if you will, to this ordinance, if it's amended. And I see, in my opinion, some difficulty in us proving an animal didn't meet one of those numerous criteria, if we were told it is for that criteria. I mean, the leash portion, that's obvious, but, what was there, 6 or 7?
Correct, trained psychiatrist dog, I think they got it.
There was numerous identifiers,
Emotional support animals.
everything. And the
Usually
ordinance language that I
abuse
read did
thing.
not require any documentation to be provided.
Yeah.
So I again, I'm a realist, there's gonna be an enforcement issue. I think that's why we would heavily rely on the educational component like we do right now.
You can ask somebody if their animal's an emotional support animal because of the ADA. You can't ask somebody if they've got a disability, so.
Correct.
It is it is hugely, it's a big issue, it's very abused. People take their dogs on planes now and.
Supermarket.
Yeah, into the,
From an enforcement perspective, if you have exceptions like that, if you issued a citation to someone, then the burden is on them, it's in effect an affirmative defense to establish that they meet one of those criteria.
Okay.
So they have to show something.
Okay.
That in effect, that's what that is. And it's also, if, whatever came to me and I was trying in court to enforce a citation because somebody contested it, it would be extremely difficult to prove your dog defecated in the cemetery thing. It's much less difficult.
DNA testing.
It's much less difficult to prove that.
that somebody's
your
had their dog in the
was
cemetery.
cemetery.
I know that, and I understand
So,
that.
I mean, from that perspective, it is easier to enforce than the other one.
Oh, boy.
But with this being a civil, would it be a municipal civil infraction or is this a civil infraction?
Municipal civil.
With it being that type, we have actually had, under our existing ordinances, complaints where one of the small number of people that do the high number of complaints from a particular cemetery actually assaulted an elderly gentleman about his dogs there. So they actually raised it to the level from a municipal civil infraction to a criminal issue and still demanded action by our department on the person because when they fled the cemetery in their pickup truck, they didn't stop at the gate and they felt that was unsafe and demanded we track them down and give them a ticket for that. Okay? So when it comes to animals, when it comes to the cemetery, it gets heated and we've dealt with several of those, but it is a very small number of people. And it's repetitive, the same people.
Councilman Stuchel, did you have something?
Well, I would just, there's a lot of dog lovers and there's plenty of places to walk dogs. I think we gotta remember that a cemetery is sacred ground.
It is.
It's very sacred ground. And there are just some places where you don't take things. That's how I look at it. It's very sacred ground. It just happens to be sacred ground outside. We need to protect that.
But a more restrictive ordinance with potentially better signage, there's existing signage, the people go through that gate, read those signs that are posted there at the side there, probably not. So maybe we could look at, better signage, more visible signage or something like that, and for some people that would be enough. It would be a corrective action for some.
Any more questions for Jason, Councilman Soha?
Would it be, or does the current ordinance require leashing to your dog, if you're gonna have a dog in there?
No, just like, out on the city street, the sidewalk, the ordinance states leashed and or under the immediate control. Did I say that correctly? Which means distance would then become an issue. Obviously, if the dog's 100, 150 yards away from you, I think we could argue it's not under your immediate control. But if the dog's within this span and you click your fingers or say a word and they stop, sit, come right back to you, that would be considered under the immediate control. So even outside the cemeteries, that's the language we work with within our current ordinances. And it's very easy if they like somebody to say they were not under your control.
Any more discussion, questions for the chief or Jason? Thank you, Jason. Thank you, chief.
Thanks, sir.
Yeah, I just have one more question. As far as the cemeteries go, are those all fenced in? Like 4 sides fenced in for both?
Oak Grove has the Montgomery Street frontage fenced in, and Lakeview has it'd be the westbound fenced in, that'd be it on both of them.
So other animals could come in there too?
Correct.
Deer.
That's what I was thinking.
Any more discussion? Okay, we'll open the podium During this public comment period, please limit your trips to one to the podium. Please limit your comments to 5 minutes. And please understand, during this public comment section, you can only speak on the ordinance amendment to approve cemetery animal ban. Podium is now open.
Hello, Carla Adams, Ward 4. I just want to read this again. I'm hoping that this pet thing doesn't have anything to do with the federal government. Any county or city fails to comply with federal law and regulated guidelines, all the money would be required to be paid back. I want you to keep in mind that there is pet owners that have passed away. There's also an aching in an animal when the deceased person has passed away, and there's some kind of relief when a family can take the pet over to the memorial site and enjoy a nice time. Of course, we have deer, we have groundhogs. We also have, is it maintained? Is the cemetery maintained like a park would be? Is there some kind of cleanup they can go through and just clean up and make sure, once in a while that everything is looking okay? It's not okay, of course, to deficit or whatever you want to call it, go to the bathroom on somebody's grave, but an animal isn't coherent of what it's doing, but the owner, of course, would be. I just feel like it would be a negative way for the city to present itself, requiring a ban on animals to a cemetery when it's actually a natural habitat for an animal, and we already have other animals passing through, and I want to bring it back to this and hope to God it's not part of this guideline. Thank you.
Thank you, Carla. Any more public comment?
Penny Swan, Ward 4. I have family up at Oak Grove. I have a plot up there. When I had a dog, I used to go up there and walk him and follow the rules. I never let him off leash. I never let him go to the bathroom in there. I enjoy looking at their headstones and thinking about the families. It's a very peaceful place to go and get in touch with your relatives, get in touch with the history of Hillsdale, and I felt safer walking there with my dog. I don't, as a single person, I don't feel safe walking in isolated areas being a single woman. I just don't, I never have. I've lived in Seattle, Boston. It's just not something I'm comfortable with. I was wondering about increasing fines and actually enforcing it. If they see somebody out there, don't wait for a complaint, get proactive on it. It is disgusting having animal poop in that area. You walk in the Ball Beach Trail, there's animal poop there. You walk at the parks, there's animal poop there. It's disgusting. I always carried a fanny pack with bags in my fanny pack, so you pick up after your animal. One other thing I was wondering about is like PSA is talking about it out there. Get it out there. We're gonna increase the fines, or we're gonna start enforcing it. Do something. I did a little research. This came up in Ann Arbor, which is anything but conservative, and they couldn't even bring themselves to ban animals from the cemeteries. You're punishing the good law-abiding citizens who are respectful for the few disrespectful. We're seeing disrespect all over the place, and people aren't following the current ordinance. Why are they gonna follow a new one? It just, if I thought it would work, I might reconsider my stance, but I just don't even think it's gonna work. Thank you.
Thank you, Penny. Any more public comment?
My name is Richard Smith, and I am on the cemetery board. And I've only been on it this year, but as I understood it to start with, this ordinance that we have, keep the dog on a 6-foot leash, has been hard to enforce. I don't know why, but that's what I heard, that it's been hard to enforce. And we've had, I understand, several people that have come before the council and to the city about dog waste on their headstones. I like dogs, I like animals, but it's sacred ground also. And on that, in that respect, we talked about this to to some length at the cemetery board meeting. And it was felt that the best way to do this is, first of all, we're gonna put up new signs. The signs that are currently on the cemeteries are very old, they're outdated, and people don't read them anyway. But you gotta have a sign to at least enforce something if you need to enforce something. So, our conclusion, after speaking with the chief of police and hearing the complaints and reading the letters, was no more dogs, no more domestic pets, period, in the sacred grounds of the cemetery. And I knew there'd be people that would complain about it. Like I said, I like dogs. I have neighbors that walk their dogs. My one neighbor, she goes by and she says, "Don't pee on Richard's bushes." Her husband walks by with the same dogs and lets him pee on my bushes. So, you know, everybody treats animals differently. And all animals are not trained. In fact is, some aren't even leash trained, let alone being allowed to run free. And that's another consideration, dogs running free on a cemetery, and you've got people in there visiting their deceased relatives or whatever, and a dog comes up on them and running loose, running free, you don't know what that dog's gonna do. I see it, I've seen it in my own neighborhood. But cemetery is, you don't go to a cemetery and expect to be greeted by a barking dog, let alone the deer and antelope that run through there. But the dog itself should be under control, and they're not. So that's the reason we said this. But as I want to repeat, you're putting up new signs, and that was one of the items was no more pets or domestic animals. So whatever they decide, we'll make the sign read accordingly. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Dick. Any more public comment?
Frank Engel, 53 South Norwood. Ladies and gentlemen of the council, mayor, city manager. First of all, I'd like to read to you the Article 7 of the ordinance of 2017-01 for those of you who have not read it. It says, pets, all domestic animals shall be confined at all times to designated roads, avenues, and walkways, and must at all times be on a leash with a maximum length of 6 feet. At no time shall a domestic animal be allowed to roam free within the cemetery grounds. All individuals accompanying domestic animals on cemetery grounds shall be subject to the requirements of Section 4-34 of the Hillsdale City Code. That's the existing ordinance for the city cemeteries, which are cemeteries, not parks. They're not dog parks, they are cemeteries. Holy ground, sacred ground. Our veterans are buried there. And this wording is also posted on 2 new signs from 2017 at each entrance of each cemetery. The paraphrasing of that from the previous rule is on the old sign, which paraphrased most of that, but it was in fact enacted as an ordinance in 2017, put on a brand new, reflective 18 by 24, properly signed at each cemetery, and is being ignored. I'm here tonight to urge the council to put an end to the condonement of the desecration of graves at the city cemeteries. I have personally seen many times defecation and digging up and destruction at sites, on gravestones, and other instances. I've seen people have to jump back in their vehicles because of loose dogs coming at them at cemeteries. For years, pets have been allowed by a few owners to run loose in the cemeteries, free to urinate, defecate anywhere and everywhere, including headstones of loved ones and veterans. It's not all of them. It's a few. Unfortunately, we can't get the few to stop. with just saying, don't do it. Oh, don't do that. We need some teeth in the thing. If it's a ban, outright ban, anyone that reads the signs will be able to say, I'm sorry, you're gonna have to leave your animal in your vehicle or take it with you. And then they can call the police if they do not do so. And discussion, there's no, well, I have him on an electronic leash, or he would never attack anybody. No, it's just simple. It's either you have the dog in the vehicle or you take it with you. You can't have it loose on the cemetery. Again, cemeteries are not dog parks. We have over 7 parks in the city, 6 of which allow dogs. Sandy Beach does not. Why? There are people there enjoying the area. They can get loose dogs, bite people. They don't all, but people let dogs run loose. We have liability of being bit. They defecate on the beach sand. We don't want the defecation of the beach sand. We've banned dogs from Sandy Beach. So it's not a, we've never done this before. It has been done before. And I think it's time to apply this sort of ban to the cemeteries to respect the people that have passed on before, so the people that go to visit the cemeteries don't have to worry about what happened to Aunt Millie's grave by a loose dog. Yes, there are deer, there are squirrels, there's wild animals. That's gonna be anywhere. That's in my backyard. I've got deer and squirrel in my backyard almost every day. I can't control that, but a person who owns a dog can control where they take their dog to do whatever. Samuel Presto Field, people run their dogs loose there. No one complains there because there's not a bunch of people sitting around trying to enjoy things, and there's not people that have fought and died for our country that are buried there. The cemeteries are filled with the history of the city. How many founding founders are up there? Most of them. A lot of them are at Lakeview, a lot of them are at Oak Grove. It's a place for learning and contemplation. Walking is a great place to walk and enjoy peace in nature and commune and enjoy the sanctity of the cemetery. Covered that. I covered the fact that some people are ignoring the signs. And so we can't control the behavior of the pet owners, unfortunately. Because the dogs, they do what the owners let them do. So we can't control the dogs, we have to control the owners. The signs would be a great improvement. We'll get new signs with the new code banning dogs, so that we can just say, I'm sorry, you need to leave, so you don't desecrate this holy and sacred ground. So I'd like to urge the council to pass the domestic animal ban at cemeteries. Thank you.
Thank you, Frank. Any more public comment?
I think it's a great statement that you made, and I would address that as being same equal. The only thing I look forward is not seeing is the possibility of the disruption of you out there possibly not knowing and having your dog with you, and then having an opportunity of another officer coming out and saying, hey, that dog's gonna attack me. Or you getting irate because I wanna visit my father. I wanna visit my granddad. And you're gonna say it's okay for that officer to come up there, and the dog's gonna get peed off. You know how dogs are. So how are we gonna measure? I don't know. To me, it's unreasonable, but you folks make the good judgment.
Thank you. Thank you. Any more public comment? Seeing none, we'll close the podium. Any more discussion, council? No discussion? All right, guys, what do you guys want to do? Entertain a motion?
To ban dogs?
To approve the ordinance amendment to approve cemetery animal ban.
So moved. Support.
Motion on the floor from Councilman Stuchel, seconded by Councilman Beer. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
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 We need a roll call vote, City Clerk.
Councilperson Beer,
Yes.
Councilperson Sharp,
No.
Stuchel,
Yes.
Pratt,
No.
Sizer,
No.
Mayor Stockford,
No.
Councilperson Soha,
Yes.
and Reiner.
No.
Three yeses and, what's that, 5 noes, so it fails.
Thank you, Katie.
Mr. Mayor, may I?
Councilman Zeiser, go ahead.
I do think that something needs to be done, although I felt that that ordinance as it was constituted was, for a number of reasons that were articulated, was too broad. This is not a motion, but I'm just throwing out the idea that perhaps we might bring this to committee to discuss other abatement measures. It seems like we don't have the resources and we shouldn't be prioritizing the enforcement of the existing, but maybe we could put some bags out there and,
Are you on public services?
yes.
Would you please have a meeting with the cemetery board and work together with them to, because I agree with you, something.
Thank you, Bill.
Can you, please?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Members, Dick, is that okay?
That'd be fine.
Okay, thank you. Yes, sir.
I agree with Bill on that because I'm a pet owner too, but I also respectful pet owner. And that's where we've got to educate people. Signage, whatever it takes, we've got to educate people. They're gonna take their dog and they've gotta be educated to be respectful. I am respectful when I take my dog for a walk. I carry bags with me. I'm respectful of other people's properties. That's the way it's cemetery, it's holy land. Sacred, let's be respectful, but there's always those few. And those are the ones we have to deal with. That's why I voted no tonight.
No, I could have gone either way. I agree that it's holy land and that,
Yeah.
and I could even see not allowing animals in there at all, but I knew once we passed it, it'd be passed and that'd be that, so. Yes, it needs to be, it needs,
Sounds like it really
some
comes
fine tuning.
comes down to a few individuals who are kind of recidivist and unreachable on this, which is, that's,
I'd like to see an increase in fines, like
Yeah,
a serious fine for
right.
somebody that would allow their dog to do that, like a
And-
$500,000 municipal fine.
and enforcement to the degree possible.
And shoot the dog.
And shoot the dog. I mean, that is terrible.
Sure,
That's not
500
terrible.
or
It's
1,000,
terrible
right?
that someone would do that.
Why
Yeah,
not?
500 or
It is a
1,000.
desecration.
Is that what I said, 500,000?
That's what it said.
$500 or $1,000 fine.
The Monopoly man is letting his dog.
Well, one person violates it, we can fix a half mile of streets, so. I didn't say that. All right, let's move on. To adoption of ordinance rezoning of well, first, let's close that public hearing. We'll move into introduction and adoption of ordinances, public hearing. Item C, adoption of ordinance rezoning of 901 Development Drive. Dave or Alan or
I think Alan's here.
Alan? Would you like to take this one?
So, the parcel of land, on the westernmost, side of the manufacturing park, excuse me, known as 901 Development Drive, is under agreement with the city to be purchased. One of the caveats in the agreement was to rezone it residential. We ran it through the required processes. There was a public hearing before the planning commission, and the planning commission voted unanimously to refer it to council for adoption. The ordinance does state that it would be contingent on the completion of sale of the property. So if for whatever reason the sale didn't go through, that it would remain I-1. But if the completion of the sale does occur, then it would be changed to R1, which is single family residential.
Thank you, Alan. Any questions for Alan? Steve, did you wanna add something? Richard, you're out of order, sir. That's okay. I'm sorry. Trying to keep very tight leash on everything. No, this isn't a public hearing like the last one. I'm sorry. Did you have something to add, Steve? Any questions for Alan? Thank you, Alan. Discussion at the council table? Councilman Soha?
May I ask Mr. Stoll a question?
You may. Mr. Stoll, will you please come to the podium?
Could you just describe what your vision is gonna be, how many homes and?
I believe there's 13, I'll have to look at, Rick drew up all the site plan, but I think there's 13 homes on that property, I believe.
And they're single family, not
Yeah,
like the
they're single-family
duplexes,
homes, they're not
correct?
condos.
Mhm.
Yeah, so it's just it would have a street that would be a kind of a horseshoe in there that will go out and come back, go in and
Great.
come back out. Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Well, you've proven ourselves over here on bacon.
Right.
So obviously, growth, the housing shortage, I think what you're doing is a great thing.
Thank you. We appreciate your guys' help.
Support you.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Thanks, Steve.
Thanks, Steve. Any discussion? Entertain a motion to,
So moved.
Second. There you go.
motion on the floor from Councilman Soha, seconded by Councilman Sharp. May I please have a roll call vote, City Clerk?
Councilperson Sharp?
Yes.
Stutzel?
Yes.
Pratt?
Yes.
Sizer?
Yes.
Mayor Stockford?
Yes.
Councilperson Soha?
Yes.
Reiner?
Yes.
And Beer?
Yes.
8-0 approved.
Thank you, Katie. All right, we've got one item in old business. Which was, can't find my notes here now. Agreement for use of vacant land. Jay?
So, back in January, council had approved a buy-sell agreement on the 152 acres remaining, that Mr. Stoll did not purchase, which was pretty much the remaining land in the industrial park, to a Dick Swain. Section 8 of that agreement, called for an agreement on allowing the property to be farms for a certain number of years while he was working on the sales of that. So that was the contingency, to the agreement. The agreement that you have addresses that contingency and basically spells out, that they have up to 10 years, and as the property is sold and comes off, or sold, for industrial uses, then it would come off of being farmed and be built upon. After the 10 years, it will be taxed as straight industrial property. So he does have an incentive to see that it is sold to a third party and built upon, to get it out of his hands, because once it hits 10 years, then the taxes on that will go up. Tom was part of, we're negotiating out this agreement. Tom, is there anything you wanted to add?
No, it's largely what they proposed, we made a few, minor corrections to it, but it's consistent with what was agreed on in the original purchase agreement, so this was just the follow on. It would provide some detail about the use of the property for agricultural purposes.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Tom. Any questions for Dave or Tom? Entertain a motion to approve the land use.
Resolution.
Entertain a motion to approve the resolution for the land use agreement.
So moved.
Support.
Motion on the floor from Councilman Stutzel, seconded by Councilman Soha. Can I have a roll call vote, City Clerk?
Councilperson Stutzel?
Yes.
Yes.
Mayor Stockford?
Yes.
Councilperson Soha?
Yes.
Reiner?
Yes.
Beard?
Yes.
And Sharp?
Yes.
It's 8-0 approved, resolution 3502.
Thank you, Katie. 3502?
Correct, yeah.
Thank you, Katie. We'll move into new business. Item A, budget amendments for fiscal year 2022. Uniform and Budget Accounting Act of 1968 as amended requires the city to make amendments to the budget when appropriations exceed the current budget. These amendments must be approved by the city council. This is also a great opportunity for council to review the types of items that may impact the budget. In the general fund, the city council adopts a budget for each department, so the amendments address any budget needs by a department rather than by fund total. For all non-general funds, a budget amendment is only necessary if the city finds the total fund appropriation will exceed the budget adopted by council. Any council discussion on this item? Dave, did you have anything to add to this?
Just that, the finance director, Karen, could not be here tonight. She's, at another meeting, but I think she laid out pretty clearly the changes there, both on revenue and expenditure side. And if there are any questions of council on a specific item, I'll be happy to answer that.
Okay. Any questions for Dave?
Just, Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Soha?
Mr. Mackey, this doesn't include the overage on the legal fees. Is that
No,
correct?
that is correct. That, will we do have one more, budget amendment that we'll be making at the June 20th meeting for any last adjustments to the budget so that it does not go over. So we have one more budget amendment to make, and that will be included in there if that whole administrative area goes over budget.
Are the TIFA's expenditures so much higher than the revenues because they paid us back on the loan that we gave them through Board of Public Utilities?
No, that's primarily due to the timing of when they finished the project.
Okay.
So it wasn't necessarily that, according to the finance director, I did ask.
Okay. Any more questions? Motion to approve the budget amendments,
So moved.
or the resolution, excuse me.
Support.
Motion on the floor from Councilman Soha, seconded by Councilman Beer. May I please have a roll call vote, City Clerk?
Councilperson Pratt?
Yes.
Sizer?
Yes.
Mayor Stockford?
Yes.
Councilperson Soha?
Yes.
Reiner?
Yes.
Beard?
Yes.
Sharp?
Yes.
Stewart?
Yes.
8-0 approved. That's resolution 3499.
3499, thank you, Katie. We'll move into item B, in new business, financial reports for quarter ending 3/31/22. Go ahead, Dave.
If I may, Mayor, this is just basically a receive and file, to accept a report. And basically this is where we're at with the budget today, and as the finance director laid out, each particular area where there might be an issue of concern, she kind of tried to highlight that, as she mentions the different ones like recreation, TIFA, capital improvement, looking at expenditures versus revenue, and she tried her best to explain that, those.
Yep.
She thinks that financial reports are good. She just wanted to explain those variances.
Yeah, so a couple of them really look good. Public services inventory revenues are at 395.81%. That's pretty impressive. Fire vehicle and equipment fund revenues are at 105.69%. So those are nice things to see. Airport improvement funds revenues are at 155.24%. So that's where we're really shining in those places. Very, very impressive. And of course we would be, because that's where we put a lot of focus at, so. Any questions, comments, ladies and gentlemen? I'd entertain a motion to,
Accept the report.
adopt the financial report? Approve the financial report?
So moved.
Or,
Motion on the floor from Councilman Soha, seconded by Councilman Sharp. Can I have a roll call vote, City Clerk?
Councilperson Zizer,
Yes.
Mayor Stockford,
Yes.
Councilperson Soha,
Yes.
Reiner,
Yes.
Beer,
Yes.
Sharp,
Yes.
Stuchel,
Yes.
and Pratt.
Yes.
8-0, approved.
Thank you, Katie. We'll move on to item C in new business, traffic control order 2022-09 resolution. Chief?
Yes, this traffic control order is for the Dawn Theater. Jack McLean a month ago made a comment up here about the theater and about no parking, and the reason why is it's a state highway. We don't control traffic control orders for that. We put in an annual request for known things such as parades, known construction coming up on the state highway. When they put the crosses up once a year up along Broad Street, all those things, we do an annual permit for it.
Okay.
So that was not included in this, but I did a little research, and there is a state law that states that there shall be no parking in front of the egress doors of a theater. It's very plain, very simple, not ambiguous at all. That's what it is. I then spoke with Kim, Alan, Kelly, and walked across the street and spoke with the manager of the Dawn Theater, who all confirmed it is still a theater, where the theater was in the grant paperwork. It will be used in that capacity from time to time along with other things. So that's why we brought forth the traffic control order. Again, it was still a state highway. Jake and Jason reached out to their contact with MDOT regarding this. MDOT said, yep, we understand, we're gonna let you guys deal with that, control it. We support, we back you, we agree with your decision. Just go through your normal process on this. Again, speaking with the DPS, speaking with the management, and I was in agreement that when they do rent this facility out for certain events, there are gonna have to be trucks that stop to offload tables, chairs, things like that. So this traffic control order is for the parking spot directly in front of the egress doors. Will be a no parking zone. The curb will be painted yellow. There'll be yellow hashtags out onto the street. The next parking spot to the south, the very first one to the south, will be signed as a loading, unloading zone only. This side of the sign, so people understand it's just that one parking spot, knowing that we've seen trucks and trailers over there offloading tables and chairs and stuff like that. So this traffic controller is our normal process. That's what MDOT asked us to do, to go through our normal process for such things.
Sounds simple enough. Thank you, Chief. Any questions for the Chief? Thank you, Chief. Any discussions? Entertain a motion to approve the resolution for this traffic control order.
Thank you.
Second.
Motion on the floor from Councilman Sharp, seconded by Councilwoman Pratt. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. And that is resolution.
3571.
Thank you, Katie. We'll move into item D, appointment of alternate commissioner to the Michigan South Central Power Agency. Dave?
Yep, thank you, Mayor. This is appointing Jake as the alternate. Previously, that was Chris MacArthur. I am the commissioner, and then in my absence, this allows them to vote on the city's behalf. The BPU board has approved Jake's appointment as alternate commissioner, and then it comes to council for approval. So that's what we're asking for, is council to approve the attached resolution appointing Jake Campbell as the alternate commissioner.
I mean, it's an appointment. Why do we need a resolution? Because the MSCPA needs it?
Yes.
Okay, fair enough. Any questions? Entertain a motion to make the appointment and approve the resolution.
So moved.
Support.
Motion on the floor from Councilman Soha, seconded by Councilman Stuchel. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. All right, we've got no proclamations tonight. We've got one appointment to the Board of Public Utilities, and that's Phil Lip McDowell, who is Vice President of Engineering at Cobra Moto. He will be a great addition to the board. Any questions regarding that appointment? Entertain a motion to approve the appointment? Make the appointment?
So moved.
Second.
Motion on the floor from Councilman Soha, seconded by Councilwoman Pratt. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. There we go. We'll move into general public comment. During this time, the podium will be open. Please limit your comments to 5 minutes. Please limit your trips to one to the podium. And at this point, you can speak about whatever your heart desires. Podium is now open.
Hello, I'm Carla Adams from Ward 4. So, I submitted a FOIA request March 24th, 2022. I'm requesting policy and procedure for the Roundup billing process for BPU. Disclosure to the public and application when it came to fruition, the account balance for each year. It's my understanding it started in 2008. Things and the amounts that have been used for and the balance now. Please provide the documentation for Roundup from the BPU policy book. I paid $75. What I received was mostly minutes, meeting minutes. I received this little portion from the supposed policy and no explanation. So MCL 15.235, 7B and C state, if a public body issues a notice extending the period for, hold on, let me go back to the right one. There's so many documents here. Yeah, if a public body issues a notice extending the period for a response to the request, the notice must be specific for the reason for the extension. I did not receive an extension. It took me 2 months to pay this. Grant the request in part and issue a written notice to the requesting person denying the request in part. It was never noted in here why it wasn't included. Then I was told that Community Action Agency holds the policy. Well, how can the Community Action Agency, which is a 501c3, hold the policy for BPU? So I'm confused. And then it has to also, through B, tell me that I can appeal it. That wasn't included, so I'm requesting my money back. What I received is right here, which was an insult. I could have got these meeting minutes. She did include when it came to fruition, and like I said, a bunch of meeting minutes, $75 on a fixed income. So in order for there to be an exemption, it needs to be classified national defense and foreign relation information. I don't believe that's so. Internal agency personal rules and practices. Still not. Information that is prohibited from disclosure by another federal law. I'm not sure about that. Trade secrets? Maybe. Commercial or financial information obtained from a person that's privileged or confidential. I don't see how a Roundup program that I paid into could be confidential for my account. Exemption 5, interagency or interagency memoranda or letters that are protected by legal privileges. So I'm starting to question what exactly is this Roundup program. I spoke with David Mackey, who told me there really isn't a policy for it. So I am requesting my money back. I can show you the documents that I do have. And then I called Laura. She actually resent the same documents, which was these right here. So I have 2019, 2020, and 2021 deposits. There's no account. What I was looking for is how much money has been allocated each year and how much money had been used. And what I received is $75 worth of nothing. So I'm requesting my money back, and I'm also thinking about a lawsuit since there was no way to appeal it, there was no reason behind it, and I had to go above and beyond means and go and ask the community agency, ask David Mackey, go to BPU, and come down to the city and talk to Katie, I don't know how many times. To me, that's a waste of my time. As far as accepting the federal grant money, I didn't know that the check I received came with contingencies because I didn't sign my rights away when I received it. If you could show me where I could find that in the COVID relief fund, that would be great. I do appreciate all of your hard work, and believe me, you guys have your work cut out for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Carla. Any more public comment?
Scipio Township. Carla, amazing, very good information. To the rest of you, I had an incident which has had occurred at the county commissioners. I had one a year and a half or so ago, in which I had quite a issue with, let's say, the city police's position and how they would obtain and getting information to accomplish the end result, which really, frankly, to say the end result didn't matter if you come to this board or you come over there to the prosecuting attorney's office, which, you know, he's not well liked by a lot of people. Wouldn't have mattered. But anyway, I need to let you know this incident took place inside the county commissioners. And we've also made the statement. I was asked to come down and make my statement, and I did so. I was asked a half hour ahead of time, and I then proceeded to drive over. I believe his name is Detective Martin, and he asked me to show, I did. And when I got there, he said, we don't have the video, we don't have recording, and we don't have a paper here, you know. Then what'd you ask me for? I have no idea why in hell I'm there. But we can go ahead with it. So he wrote out his own script, asked me questions, he wrote it out, and I'm trying to use my camera to try to focus. Of course you can't read what he's written on it. So I then later approach it by calling him up and saying, look, I want to make sure I have it appropriately signed. He never asked me to sign it. He's just going to go, this is the way, this is the thing to do. It's not the thing to do. The thing is you give me a piece of paper, I'll sign the document and get it punched, and I'm going to have a copy. He wouldn't give me a copy either. He says, you have your video. Well, the video doesn't show what he wrote. The video is on the side watching it. And so I ask again, and he says, sorry, well, I said, okay, I'll fill out my own. He says, you can't do that. And he says, falls back and says, well, I guess you can. Come on in and you know, make out a whole new one and we'll get it signed. So, you know, it was just like, why come here? I didn't appreciate it. I'd done everything I was supposed to do, making a report. Mark Wiley, along with Schmidt, was there, along with Brad Benzing, that committed the crime, alongside of Brent Leninger, was also there, that stopped it from happening or going any further. That's some serious stuff. I got my stuff on camera, and everybody just made innuendos about what I did. This was factual, and I don't see them getting arrested, and yet this is under the city jurisdiction to do so. Anyway, thank you and have a good evening.
Thank you, Bob. Any more public comment? Seeing none, we'll close the podium and move into the city manager's report. Dave?
Thank you, Mayor. I have a number of things to mention. First I'm going to mention is the Heritage Association of Hillsdale County's mural unveiling, sponsored by Hillsdale, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram. Actually, the mural is going to be going up tomorrow at the top of the wedge. I think we talked about it at the last meeting. You guys do have a flyer. WCSR is going to be doing a live event there from 12 to 2 p.m. tomorrow. And also have a meet and greet with the muralist and such. So we'll be able to get a front row view of that tomorrow as they put that up, and as they prepared it to go up. Now we did, because Jack McLean did ask about this at the last meeting, whether it's considered a billboard. We did have the city attorney look into that versus our ordinances, and it is not. So, because it's not, it is not based on their legal review. So that being said, the mural is going up tomorrow. Second item that you have in front of you, now this will go out as a press release tomorrow, which is about potential power shortages across Michigan. There was an article about this about a week or two ago that was put out from the Mid-Continent Independent System Operator, which we call MISO, that kind of oversees the power grid for 15-state region, including Michigan. And it's been determined, and as that previous article stated, Michigan's gonna be about 6 gigawatts short of power this year, potentially, due to primarily to the closing down of coal-fired, gas-fired plants that has occurred over the last several years for more greener type power. The issue becomes with solar and wind is solar doesn't produce all the time. It's very inefficient, and wind does not blow all the time. So that being said, we're lacking some of our base capacity as a state, and that's created kind of a potential issue. With that, they have asked us to put together a plan that if it looks like we're not going to have enough power in the state, that we can actually conserve resources by various things, turning off unneeded lights, working with our manufacturers. So we are actually meeting with the BPU board tomorrow to discuss putting that plan together for this summer. Consumers took a step towards this a couple of years ago, where they actually gave an incentive out to their customers that if you let us put a shut-off device on your air conditioner, we'll give you a little cheaper rate. I know this because I took advantage of it, but they've never shut off my air condition because I don't think we've been in this position. But now it could potentially happen. We don't have devices like that, but for the bigger utilities, they're talking about being able to shut off their customers on a rolling basis just to conserve energy to meet this demand. So this will go out tomorrow on the city's Facebook page and to the media outlets on the city's behalf. And again, the BPU board is working on that plan and how we'll address this. We do have 2 engines, so that produce about 11 megawatts of power. So if they come to us and say, we need you to produce 5 megawatts of your power, we can kind of compensate because we do have those resources. And that is part of our long range, well, not necessarily long range, but mid-range goal with the BPU is to make sure that the city is self-sufficient as possible, because we've all heard and seen, like California, having the rolling brownouts, and Texas, when they had issues. There are means to address that. We have our 2 older engines, but they're becoming less cost effective, and there are means to make it cheaper for the future. So that is part of the BPU's plan, is to pursue those options so that we can take care of ourselves if need be.
We need to.
Yes.
We need to build a wall around this city, is what we need to do.
Become the trail down to border. Let's see.
Around now, this is insane.
Yeah, agreed. Have received notice from the city's insurance carrier at the airport that they are denying the claims from the folks who felt that they flooded due to the airport property. So they are denying those claims, and then we'll see where that goes. A couple of things here. As we talk about legal cost, just want to mention to the board that we typically see depositions and other things as are associated with it, but there is one lawsuit that's associated with Center City that I've been requested to do a deposition on, and will probably take 2 hours of my time up. So that, it's just the nature of the beast, but we can't get those hours back, unfortunately. And then lastly, this is something that I've been speaking with the finance department for a number of months about. We were approached by Modern Waste, who was interested in potentially purchasing the transfer station take that operation private to expand their operation. And late last week, we did get a draft purchase agreement for that. Tom is reviewing the document, and we're trying to work through the different nuances in the hopes of being able to bring that forward to council with a recommendation at the next meeting. The purchase price is $875,000. So we established that through working with the assessor on land values in the area, what we've spent on the new facility there, as well as what we get in rental income each year, which is about 40,000 thereabouts. So the 875,000 works up to a combination of those value-wise.
Don't forget to mention what it costs to replace that building too.
Right, and that's part of it. The cost to replace the building was about $340,000 that we just spent. So the land cost and then the rental cost. So we're pleased with the number, and like I said, we're working on the agreement to be able to bring it back to council for discussion and potential approval at the next meeting. That is all I have.
Very good. City Manager Mackey. Any questions for City Manager? Councilman Sutton?
Fuel sales for graduation increase?
Say that again?
Hillsdale College graduation, any fuel charges or increases at the airport?
Yes, we sold over, if I recall, it was over 3,000 gallons of jet fuel. So
How much is that?
I think it's like $5 or so.
I get that right over here.
Yeah.
That's not jet fuel.
Yeah, it's more than 5. But
Yeah.
it's in that ballpark.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a good chunk.
Okay, good.
Yeah, as you can see with the budget amendments, fuel has been, still continue to do very well with that.
You're doing good, Dave. Proud of you. Proud of the administration, proud of the work of this council.
We're selling everything.
We are selling everything. You're darn right. We'll hold on to our parks and our airport.
Yep.
Few other things, but I like it. Any more questions for Dave before we move into council comment? Thank you, Dave. Council comment? Councilman Soha?
Just was it Carla that brought up the roundup the last time when we talked about it at council?
Yeah.
Can you remind me what our decision was? Didn't we ask to send it to BPU?
We asked the BPU board to look at it to make it,
opt-in.
make it an opt-in where you have to actively opt in.
Right. That's what I
Yes.
thought. I just
And
wanted
it is on their radar and going to be working on that. Yes.
No, I agree with that. It should be an option.
Thank you, Councilman Soha. Councilman Brenner?
I just have one thing. Gordon and Sharon Thompson were here tonight to talk about the 901 Development Drive rezoning. Gordon and Sharon are Hillsdale Township residents, and they farm the land that butts up to that property. And there's a little sliver across from Development Drive, I think, that's farmland still, and it gets farmed. I think he farms a portion of it, and then another guy farms maybe a little section of it. He's always asked the city about purchasing that, and I think it's maybe, it might be like an acre or two there, I think, on that side of the road. And when this rezoning was coming through, he was told that that would never be able to be rezoned to ag. And I had mentioned to him, if Stoll was buying it, maybe Stoll doesn't have plans for that side of the road to do any houses, and maybe at that point in time they could work out an agreement for him to purchase that. But it's in the city limits, so we would have to do kind of similar what we did with the other acreage and do some type of agreement or amendment to allow that to be farmed, I believe, or be ag land. So I noticed they were here, and then they got up and left after we approved that. So So I just wanted to bring that to council's attention, and I'll, call them afterwards and talk to them, so. But I think that's the route that they would need to go, is address Stoll, and then at that point in time, purchase the property and look at coming to council to get that, to be on that.
Stoll does have that laid out in their plan, for house lots there.
On that side of the road, okay, that's what I was thinking, but if you didn't have plans, then maybe they could work out a deal. That's, it's in private hands now, so.
Or taxable value.
Right.
Any more council comment? I just wanted to say real quick, member of our library board, Josh Palladino, his wife just found out their baby, Adeline, has a very rare, kidney cancer, neuroblastoma. It's just a terrible, terrible thing. Most adorable little girl you could ever meet. So just want everybody to keep that family in your prayers and in your thoughts. Any more council comment? Motion to adjourn.
Second that.
Motion on the floor from Councilman Sharp, seconded by Councilwoman Pratt to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it.